the Raven's Voice. You got Tierson here, and as usual, you got Mr. Zealous.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Let's do the plugs. Let's see. If you want to go to the most active Armored Core forums, you got to go to the Ravens. Let's do that again. If you want to go to the most active forums for Armored Core, you have to go to ArmoredCoreLegacy.com. If you're listening to the show from YouTube, we do have a website available. You can just stream the audio there, or you can find the YouTube videos there. That's at theravensvoice.com, and you can email us at ravensvoiceacl@gmail.com.
On the money.
All right, so things. I think we can officially say. I won't even say what I was going to. I will say it this way: shit just got real.
You're at the table with the chicken dinner. She looked at the promo for the show. The winner chicken dinner.
Some people are winners with chicken dinners tonight, but you know who's not? Us.
Yeah, the recent news here. We wanted to have a show for this one. I think by itself, the very least, because as we know, there was going to be a press announcement coming up on the 21st, yesterday, about the status of FromSoftware as it was acquired and the merger was complete with Kadokawa. There's all kinds of speculation about this. We talked about, there's going to be notes about the games and everything else. At the end of the day, it turns out that this was not a massive drawn-out monologue or speech. It was simply a listing, basically, of how the management, that's what a lot of this announcement pointed at. How the management at From is shifting. And to those of you who've probably been looking at a lot of gaming news, maybe today or yesterday, or you've been seeing it already, you'll notice on Siliconera, on a number of the other spots we got, Jamatsu, I think Mecha Damachi, and everywhere. There's notes about this and what's From doing, and essentially it's been a company shakeup here. I'm
going to interrupt you there. Because,
yeah.
Company shakeup, I think, is an understatement. This new company, what are they called here? Kadokawa.
Kadokawa, yeah.
Kadokawa, Kamikaze.
This guy.
Kamikaze is kind of fitting though. Kamikaze. Look, it's what we've been saying. It's what was announced. They bought 80% of the stock. They own FromSoftware. They bought it from the other company. They have consumed it. They have changed it. They have moved. They have positioned their pieces on the board for FromSoftware to do what they wanted to do. And it's like I said last week. If they don't say anything about Armored Core, sometimes, and it actually, when it comes to when it comes to the Armored Core community, it's what isn't being said that matters. And that was something that I paid attention to a lot back in the day during the golden era of the game, and that's something that you got to watch. And I think that plays a role here. It's what isn't being said. And out of everything that was announced and all the changes that are being made and everything that you could see from it, it's like I said last week. If we don't hear anything about Armored Core, then that means they don't care. That means, look, we're doing all this. We don't care about what's failed for the last 4 years.
And if anything, as with any group, it's going to come down to profit. At the end of the day, the title or the series or what releases can at least make a bankroll with that, or what's running hot. And you look at what's running hot with FromSoftware right now. It's not too hard to put two and two together. It's obviously the Dark Souls series. And it's had continued successes. And the irony here, speaking of Dark Souls, is that the new announced president of FromSoftware was, frankly, the guy behind Dark Souls in the first place, Mr. Hidetaka Miyazaki. It will be taking the place of, I believe, Mr. Naotoshi Zen, who we've known for a long, long time, standing behind the Armored Core series, being the main producer for that. Heck, you can look the guy up on IMDb. You can see his name behind everything from MOA all the way up to current titles, and it's changing of the guard in that regard.
They're going to put the guy who's been successful in the driver's seat.
Yeah, you have him, and not just that. Not just the front head leadership of the company. Also, some of the others who have worked on Dark Souls and Demon Souls, but are now moving into more senior positions. They had another mention on Insidific.com. I think they had also referenced Mecha Damachi, but Masanori Takeuchi, he was another producer of Demon Souls. And now he's moving up to a more senior role. And, one thing I was trying to do for this one was just connect some names, some profile names we saw on this list. We'll be sure to share a link with this too if you haven't seen it already. Connecting names with this list of people who had done roles within FromSoftware or where they sat on teams in the past, or which teams they worked with, and a number of them traces back to the Dark Souls and Demon Souls group. And try as I might, I was really looking to see if any of these names were involved with the AC, but obviously that's not how a lot of this has worked. Besides, the mention of Mr. Zen. Development cycles, at least within From, at least for, they've had different teams. There's the Armored Core team, you have the Dark Souls team, the Demon Souls team. So, things are divided in that regard. And, I never walked into this expecting, the whole AC team just worked on that and vice versa. But, in large, you're seeing that the echoes of this game, Demon Souls, and its success, felt in this acquisition, not just with the president, but with the other seniors you've had advancing. And you only have a couple. There's just a couple of names, I think, staying where they were before, like Mr. Nakajima, Eiichi Nakajima. If you guys were awesome, and if you went and watched that YouTube vid we talked about in a couple of podcasts about the FromSoftware company profile, this was the guy that was giving the tour. And he was basically talking a bit about From, its makeup and everything else. He's still there, whatnot. He hasn't moved. But other than that, counting 4 or 5, I believe at least six new senior position changes.
And that was to be expected.
Yeah.
It's like I've been saying. This is about Kadokawa turning FromSoftware into what they want it to be, and it shouldn't be anything else. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I'm obviously very upset that we're not going to get an Armored Core 6, and if we do, it's not going to be the Armored Core we know. FromSoftware, they don't care. They don't care about what FromSoftware was, and we probably won't ever see anything about them caring. This is a tool in their toolbox for their giant media entity that they want to create, the merger with the other company. And FromSoftware probably came very cheap, with the exception of Dark Souls. They haven't done shit. They're dead in the water. And, it's like, hey, well, they've got this, and and anyone who can look at game development can see, all right, FromSoftware, they've got some pretty sharp chops on them. They can do some good stuff, but their final result is not turning out a lot outside of this game. So, they probably don't even care that much for Dark Souls, other than the fact that it can actually bring in some money. But what they probably see is development talent that they can use to create games for them and for their comics and for their cartoons, and maybe launch some of their own titles. But it's not about anything that FromSoftware was.
It's change in overhead. We mentioned this before about having the creative calls with the content you want to work on, right? I mean, when you're an independent studio, you got that. You can pace yourself better with that. But when you have different shareholders and stockholders, well, naturally they're going to heavily influence what you work on, and what you do. So things are definitely, changed in that regard. And we've seen some ups and downs, I think, about From trying to branch out into other projects before, and then trying to re-rally and come back into something else. Good example here, you've recently seen the From Records label, right? Frequency, Mr. Kota Hoshino, his band, behind most of the music behind Armored Core, him getting a label, and it's finally, I feel that's kind of like the first and probably only side project From's going to get, because, well, it's not their pure management anymore. But I look back even further, right, of things that didn't get off the ground, that started and sort of didn't. We talked a little bit about this before the show. It's funny. Back in 2006, around September, Naotoshi Zen had a short press release, and this was via the official PlayStation site and everything else, about Armored Core 4 becoming a PS3 exclusive, to also give way for the company to perhaps launch into AC's first animated feature, like animated movie. We talked about this. There was a period where, Fort Tower Song, there was some other content around AC. Those of you who were in the model kits, you remember the Victoria version from, I believe that was SL coming out with some of like the newer parts and everything. Some of this was featured in the portable. It kind of felt that there were all these factors and all these things swirling around that were kind of leading to some larger release or Armored Core taking that branch, but it didn't. Because ultimately, I mean, what happened? Well, AC4 was not exclusive. Went to multiple platforms. We never saw, an animated feature to come from this, and and a lot of the times this happens in companies. They reevaluate, they retool, they look at what chips they're actually playing with, and if the grounds just aren't conducive for it, they don't do it. And this was a case where, we didn't get that. Who knows?
Right.
Maybe now that it's under Katakawa and everything else, and that there's all this other media flying around, maybe you will see an AC anime with chainsaws and lollipops.
Who cares?
Or not.
Who cares? We're
Okay.
so far removed. I mean, look, I like Gen 5. I mean, it doesn't hold me like the other ones do. Obviously, I mean, the other ones I would play them daily, almost daily. I mean, if it was just for 30 minutes or if it was for 3 hours, obviously enough passion for me to put on the ACMM events. It just doesn't hold me like it used to, and who's to blame for that? From is to blame for that.
Yeah, and that's the irony behind it too. There wasn't a drastic shift in terms of the talent that worked on AC when all these changes were happening, but there definitely was a shift, I think, in what was being listened to via the fan base, in the direction, I think, from one to take AC and reinvent the wheel on things. And this needs to be fresh, this needs to be fresh, this needs to be fresh, and it's something that just never took root. And I think everyone just never truly bought.
Well, no, I mean, here's the most obvious thing that anyone can tell you about this, is that From has no one to blame but themselves. They have misstepped since the end of the PS2 era.
Yeah.
At almost every step of the way. Now, they've had some cool concepts, but they just didn't, I mean, for God's sakes, Conquest Mode in AC5, my God. And the fact that went virtually unchanged for forever. And, they did make some changes to it, but it really wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say it, and, some people are going to be like, oh, geez, no. The biggest problem that they've had here is that they didn't listen to enough of their international fan base.
Mm. And here's a key thing that's we've talked about this for a long time. This is not an issue coming up just now in 2014. This is something that's been hashed to and from the community for at least as long as I can remember. Being a part of things in early ACO. And, you're right, some people would blow off the notion, shut up, what are you talking about? And others say, no, there's legitimate things here, and I wish that we all got a rounded say in this. Eventually there seemed to be just more of an acceptance that, okay, AC is a JP title, we understand. We're not going to have the colonists. Okay, From, show us what you got. You brought us MOA, AC2, SL, you knocked all those out of the park. All right, do your thing. And then once we got to the leap with 4, it was looking really shaky, but still people were willing to say, okay, go ahead and at least show, what you have there. And, you look at what's there today and you do see a lot of discordance, from what was actually delivered to, I think, what people were, I guess, thinking, what they were looking for, what they were expecting out of the series in a lot of ways. And that's still something talked about.
And yeah, okay, so I mean, going back to that, I mean, look, if you want to push a new concept like the team thing, I think in general the community would have accepted the whole team-based part of Armored Core if they wouldn't have fumbled Conquest Mode the way they. I mean, seriously, they could not have done that worse. That could not have been more of a blunder.
Yeah.
And then to not fix it. I mean, the numbers say it all. And furthermore on that, and we've said this a couple times, I mean, yeah, there's definitely something to be said from paying more attention to those who are buying the game the most, which is the Japanese. But that wasn't always the case. We've talked about it before, that AC2 sold the most in the U.S. And there's something to be said for the fact that, a lot of that player base came from the PS1 generation and obviously followed into the PS2 generation. And, I mean, they voted with their money.
Yep.
and From didn't really care. And
Was
there's, you know,
toasted.
I mean, honestly, if you've been a longtime fan of Armored Core, and you're from the U.S., you've been taking it in the nuts for over a decade now. And that's fine because there's always been enough there. But when there, you know, for you to enjoy and for you to accept that. But there hasn't been. And that's the problem. For the
Yeah.
last 4 or 5 years, that has not been the case.
Yeah.
And you've got to change that. You can't come up with a concept that is cool with the, you know, the whole team concept and everything, and then just do so badly on it. I mean, the negligence of that conquest mode when it came to everyone else in the world except for Japan, that is downright criminal. It's criminal for them to not fix it. Okay, so they came out with world mode, and that's better, but obviously with the sales of Verdict Day, too little too late.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of this leads just with the focus. You know, I remember hearing 5 when things were still on the block about what we were to expect in terms of the content and the online focused direction. I kind of really thought about that when I said, well, okay, what are they going to exactly do with that? You know, completely focusing that online because we know AC had a certain amount of campaigns and mission structures and everything like that. And the first thought that came to me, well, they have to shorten, you know, the single player a lot if it's going to be focused on that. You're not going to have too much of a single player outside of, you know, your customization and unlocking all the stuff. So you can get online and do everything else and find all the other stuff you want to. I think that came to pass. That came to fruition in a lot of regards. But you still look at where that sits, and I mean, just the decisions that were made therein, and writing's on the wall about that, man. I mean,
the biggest other thing about, you know, the other big thing about this, the other big blunder they made was, you know, you brought it up, is that they split it on consoles.
Yeah.
They put it on 2 consoles. That was a kick in the face, and that wasn't even just a kick in the face to the U.S. That was a kick in the face to everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone. Your entire player base. You just kicked them right in the face. Like, you know, that, I mean, if there's one thing that they should have never fucked with was the community. Be it from whatever part of the world. But to split them in half. Where's that awesome money you made from that idea now?
Nowhere. If anything, if it was going to happen, I still feel to this day Project Force should have remained Project Force, and I would have gladly accepted that as a second, you know, mech title. But nicknaming that and then going, you know, where they did, you know, with AC, it was ultimately, you know, detrimental to the community, you know, in more ways than one. And something that took a really long time to bounce back from, and then, well, frankly, the impact is still felt. It's a very constant ripple. I think for me, the thing that hits most was being in limbo about the exclusiveness or not, because, I mean, it started as, okay, this is announced, this is going to be a thing for next gen. Oh, great, but you just said next gen. Is it 1 console or 2 consoles? And then we were thinking 2 from the longest, and we had a statement, oh, it's not just going to be exclusive. Kind of like this, the 2006 article I mentioned. I said, oh, okay. Rode with that a while. Then everything's released, and no, it's, you know, now it's on both. It's like, for goodness sake.
I mean, there's that, and I think the player base would have been forgiving of the fact that this is their first time delving into that gen at that time. The new gen with the online play, and the online play was shoddy. Which, by the way, would have been a hell of a lot better if they could have focused on just one console's ability to play online.
Yeah.
But you know, I think the player base would have forgave that because the player base had been used to putting together their own shit for years. But now they can't do that.
Yeah.
Because the player base is split into 2 consoles, and last time I checked back in the day, you couldn't connect the PS3 and the 360 together. I'm pretty sure you still can't.
Well, if you get your owner's manual out, you'll find on page 68, no.
In fact, I'm pretty sure if you even put a PS3 and a 360 in the same room, one will try to eat the other. They don't like each other very much. No. So I mean that's the whole thing. Okay, so you launch this you split the community, so we can't do our LAN thing anymore, and then you fuck up the online play. But so it's no surprise to me after I took some time, I caught back up with the community. I'm like, wow, where is everyone? Oh, okay, I get it. They're pissed. But even then, people, when AC5 was going to come out, there was a lot of of old school people interested in getting on 5, and then just Conquest Jesus Christ.
Once more.
Just the cheating and the bullshit and
the
you know,
boosting and yep.
in sometime I remember back we're playing Diablo, and I remember back with Diablo 1.
Mm-hmm.
They would help you find games.
Yeah.
Even they would help you find other people. They'd give you a list of other games that are going. Or you could at least start your own and not think that, you would know that people would find it.
Right. I mean, and as baseline as that is, you jump to today with, Diablo 3, sure, people miss being able to actually look for individual rooms, but...
That's 20 years ago.
Exactly. This is not a new concept. So, here's the thing, but this has been echoed a lot too, all right? This is one thing I can give hats off for all that the AC community has endured. Especially pre-5, there was still so much patience. People were literally batting the door saying, hey...
Oh my God, the patience.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, hey, you know what? Take your time. Take your time. I don't care if it takes you 4 extra years. Just do your thing. Bring us a stellar AC. Don't mind, the wait. And people patiently just, folded their arms and just waited. And waited for that. And they were willing to. Because they knew, hey, you get that AC that does it right with online content and that does it right with the customization and the action and everything else, we'd have something there playing for years. I mean, most of the AC players that, I knew, and that I trained with and that, I played with, it were people that, weren't, not say this is a bad thing, if you do, so be it, but, weren't playing the latest game every 3 seconds or running off to the next title. They wanted to pick up AC because they knew, hey, this is something I can actually go and kind of dedicate to. Like, there's more to this than just a surface level frag, or I run in and get some kills and then I'm moving on to the next, Call of Duty or whatever else. You had those kind of fans and those people that were willing to take that time and, really stick with the series. And that's the glue that really starts to cement, a solid community. I think it starts at just the simple foundations like that, people that want to be there and actually want to invest and want to bother. And then eventually you're going to meet like-minded people that do the same thing. But for a lot of people, that's run out. I think my most recent encounter with that was Rebel Soul PK. If you're out there, dude, hey, I hope you're having fun with whatever you're playing now. But yeah, you were one that you were waiting a long, long time. You played in Kai and you were at the old AC2 events and everything else. But 5 and everything else, you just weren't feeling it. And, you eventually, hey, I see where you're going with that, man. Like, I totally respect it. But, you had the patience to stay in there and really wait and really watch and listen. So that brings us to the waiting and watching and listening now. There's another, I think, contrary perspective regarding to where AC is heading or not heading. Especially, and that's, and it's as simple as this. It's as simple as this. Like, okay, you might not have something that's generating, say, the Big Bankroll or Dark Souls here or whatever else, and you might not have a cookies and cream you're walking around with in the same hand. But you know what? Plugging a clutch game. But you know what? This was still a title that was at least at one point a flagship, and that under good making and under good management and whatnot was a great seller for From. The Armored Core was their focus. Has it been lately? No. But a lot of that I think is going to depend how capable, how this the new management or new group sees AC and sees its possibilities or what it may be reinvented as. I mean, because let's face it. I mean, I can't predict that. Should we see, AC6 in whatever form, just within FromSoftware alone, just that leadership in and of itself, not even counting all the new overhead, it's going to be something different, way different than what you're just the same brand you're used to. And
why would we ever see it?
Well, because of reasons I just outlined. I mean, above, like, if
I don't know. I mean, this is
right. Go on.
This is why this is easy for me,
mm-hmm.
because they have fumbled, and this is what I was leading up to, why we're talking about all their failures that they've had, which we didn't even touch White Glint and trying to shove that fucker down our throat. But this is the whole point. I don't, I would love to see Armored Core 6.
Yeah.
But at this point, with FromSoftware gutted, and they're going to have all these other projects, the brain trust not being what it was, I don't want to see them do it at this
Right.
point. I don't
I hear
trust
you.
them to do it at this point.
I hear you. I hear you. We've had others that have echoed a similar sentiment. And I said this.
Well, yeah, we were talking about this a few weeks ago. You were talking to people in ACU. They were laughing. They said good riddance.
Even clerics had notes about it. But I mean, there's just been a general sentiment through a number of people that AC's been dead to me for X amount of years. And the last one I enjoyed was this one, or was this one. I never hear the last group of ACs I genuinely enjoyed was Next Gen. Yeah, I mean, so that really has to be taken. I mean, considered on the table in all this, like where the love for things were, right? Where the heart of that was, and it's funny because a lot of the times this is railing about return to the old days, but I mean, you had people that were actually open for something new, and I think we just felt let down.
Well, and I think where 5 had it right was the fact that I think AC5 had just the right amount of feeling of old school to it,
Mm-hmm.
but was different enough to be its own entity. I'm not going to sit here and just rag on them. I mean, they didn't get everything wrong. That was something
Right.
they had right with Gen 5.
Right. I mean, definitely. Like, and even getting some of the extra terrain and everything, and not making, well, we have a lot more open maps in Verdict Day given, but I mean, just even looking at some of that design and the cityscapes and everything else, and kind of bringing in just an older feel mission wise. But see, even then, I think that's kind of shortened because the latest model for missions has just simply been the main 10 campaign missions, and that's all.
Well, here it is now. This is what Armored Core is now. Armored Core, and I'm sorry if this is offensive to people because I'm actually going to say so. I mean, I swear and I say bad things sometimes, but this is actually going to be probably a little somewhat offensive. Armored Core is that soldier that at this point has lost his arms, his legs. He can't hear. He can't see. That's what it is now. It's just it's this thing, and it can't do anything right. It can't do anything anymore. And that's what Armored Core is now. Where do you? I mean, seriously, unless they're going to seriously try to bring back the series to what it was, which I mean, obviously with the shakeup in the company, they're not going to do that now. Why even try?
And if anything, the first word that comes to mind for me is reboot. I mean, when we could say last time we saw that was arguably AC3.
Then they're
Reboot
going to have to let the
story-wise, but
series go for a long time. I
yeah.
mean, they're going to have to try to bring in a brand new player base and hope that enough of the old school people will say, like, well, let's give it a shot. Which, honestly, most of them won't.
Mm-hmm.
I can see 2-3 years from now, if I saw Armored Core on the shelves, I wouldn't be like, oh my god, like I was with AC5. I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
no, that's okay. I've had enough disappointment.
Right, right. And there's a number of us that I think felt like, hey, we've gone through the paces about this in times past, and I've even said it. Anything that I had to cry was left in '06 with Last Raven. And from there on, I was like, whatever, come what may, whatever form things are in, I'll check out things as they come. But there was definitely a part of that changed. I think after leaving PS2, it was so funny because it was a time for the parts to finally change. We'd been looking at the 3-gen for so long, that's given. But it was there was definitely a wave of change in the air, but the type of change that we got was what turned out to be abrasive.
I think there's some really great things about Gen 5. It's a beautiful game. I like a lot of what they did. I've complained obviously about a couple things that they didn't do. But I bought it. I loved it. With AC5 and Verdict Day. But yeah, it's not holding me. And a lot of the reason why it's not holding me is, it's just, it feels a bit too shallow. In the community isn't there, and that's talking back to what I was saying before and what we were saying before. The community is just not there. I mean, guys, if you had any idea the ideas that we've had at this point that we wanted to do for the community, I mean, I'm not even going to them. Well, maybe we'll talk about them some night about what we had planned. Because I mean, you have two of the community's best organizers on this show every week, and no, I mean, we look at this stuff. We've had ideas when we started the show, and we were helping Cheng build ACL. I mean, we were looking 6-9 months down the line. We were looking at Verdict Day. Just, when it wasn't even announced, we knew there was going to be an expansion. The writing was on the wall. If you weren't paying attention to AC5, you wouldn't see that. But if you were paying attention at all, you knew there was going to be an expansion. But the ideas that have been left, and why? The community's not there. Now, is that the community's fault? No, it's their fault. because you're only gonna take it up the ass so many times and pay for it, and then ask them to do it again. I know that was vulgar, but you know what I mean.
I got you.
Seriously, that's what's happened here. It's
You're hearing the fire, folks.
that is what's happened here, though, and that's why there's like no veterans. We are seriously, you and I, and this is a literal number of maybe a dozen veterans are still around in the community that still play the game, that still talk about current gen. That I don't think that's lowballing it at all. The reason for that.
Right. I mean, the ones, because there's also a small pocket out there that don't talk about current gen and just can't stand it, but that still hover around AC just because, they.
Right. I mean, you don't count them because they're not playing.
Right.
They're not playing the current gen. They're not trying to evolve with the game. But there's no point anymore. That's kind of why I'm lashing out here a little bit. Because overall, I guess my point is, you guys, don't cry for this. Don't be upset about this. From did this themselves, and they've fucked us every step of the way, and that's why they're here. Because it was the community. Ironically, I don't know. I guess in them trying to branch out to both consoles, thinking that they could expand their community, it did the exact opposite. And this is what I was actually. And I'm not patting myself in the back here because we joke about this. I was like the one guy on the busy street holding a fucking sign, looking all crazy and everything that the end is near. Because saying this is not going to work. This is the last thing they need to do. This is the opposite of what they need to be doing. You're screwing your base. You're a niche game. You can't do this to them. This will not end well.
Nope. But sure enough, through all the optimism and everything else, that brings us, to our events and just what's happening and what things were. And I think that's right in the money about not being too torn about this. And I don't think, we barely even have to say that. Most, especially those of you out there who have stuck with the AC series for a long time. I mean, you've followed, what's happened, and I'm sure you've made up your mind about what were your favorite titles, and everything else, and what parts of AC you enjoyed. So if anything, if you were part of that, hey, great, take that with you and always remember that in terms of gaming. I know I will. I think for people who have, if you just experienced AC, maybe if you're just stepping into like 5 or some of the others, the other side of the series is worth a look. It definitely is. If you haven't checked it out, you're saying, I don't have an old school system, or, even if you still have a fat PS3, please go check out some of the others, because I think at least for the sake of comparing and contrasting, not, I show you the golden age, son, and everything else. No, it's you will see a definite mirror to this series. And yes, the elements of customization and the foundational things that make Armored Core are there, but it's quite a contrast. It's quite a contrast to what we have now.
If you can get yourself past the control schemes of Gen 3 PC, they were rough.
They were, and it always had a steep curve.
Yeah, once you got them, though, that was pretty cool because you didn't have to worry about it anymore. But yeah, I mean, get yourself past the control schemes. You got a lot of fun. If you've never played Gen 2 or Gen 3, you're missing a lot of fun.
Yeah, and as we start looking at AC reflectively, and of course this happens, but not just between games, but I mean I think that's especially important now. As we start looking at the series as a whole, I think it's really important to not just zone in too much on what's happened in 2014 and 2013 and 2012, but I mean, look at the legacy of this. I mean, it is a darn long running series. I mean, most games don't make it this far, like period. And in my opinion, it's always worth seeing why. Like, what brought me to Mega Man, right? I mean, was actually the Mega Man X series. Super Nintendo, it's where I first got into it. I didn't play the old schools, but I very quickly saw there was this huge history. I remember when Mega Man 8 hit PS1. It was a really big deal, and I said, okay, this has been running a while. Let me see what made this, hot. And I went back and I started playing through all the classics, and doing that gave me a much better perspective, I think, on the whole series of what it was trying to be now, and what it wanted to do, and everything else. And I think that's a service to yourself as a gamer with any long running series. As we're checking out like that, so.
I feel better. I ranted a bit there. I feel a little.
It was needed.
It was. But I think more than me needing to rant, I think those things needed to be said.
Yeah.
We are at the end. Even if they make an Armored Core 6, it's not going to be this kind of game anymore. This goes back to what we talked about a few weeks ago. These games, these type of games, they don't sell. They don't make money, and they're not going to make anything like this again. I would be very shocked. I would be pleasantly surprised, obviously, because I would like to play it, but I don't think they will. I think Verdict 8 did so bad. Well, we were talking about in one of the meetings not that long ago, like people were finding Verdict 8 in the $5 bargain bin.
Quickly.
That's not good.
No,
that's liquidation time. That's so soon. That's not a good thing. I mean, it's but
yeah. My thing is, kind of what you're saying. The capacity to be pleasantly surprised should you see something with that much depth be released again. Sure, I think we'd love to be. We love to see that title, or we'd love to be surprised in that regard. I know personally, I'm not going to sit waiting with bated breath, and I was just around the corner. Just wait 2 more seconds. No. There are so many unknowns. At the moment, and
no, I have to disagree with you. I'm going to interrupt you because there's not unknowns.
Well, I'm going there.
Okay.
I'm going there.
I'll shut up.
I'm going there. There are, and I'll break that down. There are unknowns. I think in the sense of precisely where Kadokawa are going to allocate the talent that they've acquired from FromSoftware. I mean, obviously, you want to milk Demon Souls and everything, Dark Souls somewhat, but what are the knowns? Well, it's the writing on the wall and the management and where things sit and where things are going to sit from a company profiteering perspective. And when you walk into a merger like this with your previous flagship, not your previous flagship, and that new guy on the block, your current flagship, that's not something that I'm just instantly looking right around the corner for, that is going to be coming out tomorrow or the next week or the next year. I think that's quite plain. And I think really, I think a healthy, or at least something I'm adopting here, just to look at this is simply from just sales. What a group's going to go with, that's going to help push revenue. What games are going to be on that list, and look at what some of the games that have already been published. I mean, Kadokawa has a kind of odd listing of games they've worked on already, and everything from the kind of card game genre to kind of just insider style games. Nothing really like Call of Duty or anything that crazy, right? But yeah, we'll see. I just wonder if the teams that worked on AC and Dark Souls are going to end up having any kind of like nexus point on another project or something else, or will they use those resources, for separate games continually or whatever else? I'm kind of curious about that. How exactly they'll put them in. You know what? If they give them chainsaws and lollipops, so be it. But we'll go from there. So.
You know what? I think it's a good time to take a break.
Yeah.
And actually, I just saw a little feed here, a little bit more news on this relevant with FromSoftware. But you know what we have? You know what's ironic?
Huh?
We've got some pretty good emails, some pretty good questions here in our inbox, and we've been talking about this topic for the last couple of weeks, pretty much. It's been the focus. Let's actually, let's take these emails.
Yep.
Let's come back. I'm going to share this feed with you, this news feed that I got with FromSoftware during our break, and we'll hit that, and we'll hit these emails, and then we can call it a show. But I'm gonna take off my angry pants and during the break and put on my happy pants, and we'll come from a different angle on this, at least for me.
And maybe sit back and enjoy a happy Berlioz and Bailey Rose debate.
Oh boy. I still can't I am not gonna play that fucking game just to join this joke. I'm not.
All right.
I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna have to. I'm just gonna have to not get that. I mean, you explained it to me, but I mean, obviously, I haven't
I love it.
taken on that guy.
I
I'm
love
not.
it.
I'm not playing that game just to get this joke. I'm not gonna do it. You can't. You can't make me.
You heard it, folks. Catch you after the jump.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the show. You got Tierson here, and here's Zealous.
Hey, people, switching over to, what is this, fan mode edition?
Oh!
And you've turned into a jockey on me. I don't know what happened to you over the break.
Well, let's get J-Sauce on the line.
Oh, gosh.
That's an inside joke.
Oh, man. Hey, everybody. Hey, welcome back. Yeah, here we are, in our second part, and it's kind of cool. We had, as we were talking about previously, we got a couple of things to go over here that was brought up just about some of the recent news over the feed, and some fun emails to answer and just a bit of fan talk to go over here. But yeah, man, I mean, I think just jumping right into this post we got that came up here from Mr. Margarine.
Margarine.
Thank you.
The only way to say his name.
Thank you. This was an IGN post that related to some of the things we just talked about on last segment about Mr. Miyazaki becoming the new president of From, but also some official figures here. We always talk about the sales figures of various series and where things fit. And I know, personally, look, I didn't look at the numbers for Dark Souls. I never knew those off the top of my head, but we just had a vid here that was detailing Namco Bandai, their profits and their sales, as well as the exact sales figures for Dark Souls. And hey, it's we're in the millions, kids.
It did really good, yeah.
Yeah, really, really well. They were saying another Namco title that came out next to it. I think the newest DBZ game, which has seen a bit of a resurgence since that DBZ movie. There's still a big Dragon Ball crowd out there.
Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball and Pokemon, I've never gotten it.
Pokemon.
I never will. I just, yeah, so that's all you.
Yeah, DB, they were saying that had, about 600K or so in the sales, and, with Dark Souls, just, trumping that, it's over, it's about in the 1.2 million zone, not counting, how things have sold on PC. So it's done, I think, very, very well, and, it's kind of funny, because I think in some circles there were people that were wondering, hey, was there a B team that worked on Dark Souls? Was there this? It's kind of a joke, because this was even on the company profile with From when they were doing the studio tour. I think it was even mentioned that they were kind of surprised that it was such a hit. Not that they didn't put any soul or any flavor into that. Yeah, pun intended. Not that they didn't put things into it, but the level of success that came from it, I don't think that was quite expected. So I mean, hey. He's done well. Obviously, the new president, these successes, have really, really helped, bolster that position. And I think a lot of people are hoping that he continues his role directly in the Dark Souls games. Now, an interesting thing to note here that's also pointed out in this article that Miyazaki has had a lot of disdain for, if I read this right, wanting to just constantly churn out sequels. And just to milk this thing for all it's worth, wanting to be the direct part of 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. If anything, there's some looks at his possible new works. What was that? Help me out here, Tierson. It was the Beast?
Project Beast.
Project Beast. That's, there's some buzz about that. What's being talked about. A lot of fans want to see what he's getting into, with that, which could be, people are speculating, a follow-up to the original Demon Souls. We don't know yet, but
can I point something out real quick?
Yeah, go for
Can I point out the irony of they're going to take this series into the next gen. They're first saying that it's going to be exclusive on the PlayStation system, and they're calling it Project Beast. Whereas in the past, you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Armored Core 4 was originally called Project Force, originally exclusively said to be on the PlayStation 3.
Will history repeat itself?
I'm just. Is there any real relation? No, I think it's very ironic, but it's there. There's obviously some coincidences there.
It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny, and I'll say it now. Not try to unjinx. I would love to see. I love seeing exclusives. Some people say, that's just dividing things up. Everything used to be for every console. No, I like seeing that. Look, there's a reason when I went out to get my Happy Meal, right? When I was younger, that I went and I got that Sonic the Hedgehog and that Happy Meal or whatever else I knew. Man, that's on Sega Genesis, and that's why I got a Sega Genesis. Or if I want to play Mario, I know what system I got to go for that. If I want to pick up Metroid, I know what system I got to go for that. That was part of the soul of consoles for me. PC came to me later. I played the old id games, Wolfenstein and Doom, and later on, this wasn't id, but games like Descent and stuff like that. And
Quake.
Quake, yeah, man, thank you. Quake, can't leave that out. Gems like that. But then it was mostly consoles for me, and part of the draw of the console was the console exclusive titles. There felt like benefits to having certain consoles, and if you didn't have different ones, you go over to your friend's house and check those out. I love that allure. I didn't have all of them, but I would pick carefully. And I started with Sega Genesis, and then way down the road, I ended up moving into the Nintendo realm a little bit. Super Nintendo was awesome, and finally PlayStation 1 around the time FF7 came out. So it's neat. I hope it is. I hope this becomes a PS4 exclusive, because it just feels to me, most of the console games that hit today, it's like everything's for everything. This comes out, it's going to be for PS3 and 360 and PS4 and Xbox One and PC.
That was definitely the feel for the last gen.
Yeah.
I would actually say that it looks like that's not going to be the case this gen. It looks like lines are deeply drawn.
Yeah.
Which again, I agree with you. I think, I want those developers focusing on how to make this game the best.
Yep.
Not for all the consoles, but for, just make a damn good game. Pick your specs and go with it.
Yep.
And, there's something to be said for that. And if you want to make an open-ended game, make it for the PC.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the dev boxes and the toolkits are, and the community is going to go and get their saws out and convert this thing into all kinds of ways. I mean, you don't have to look too far to see this. The PC community will always invent all types of different things for a game that you didn't imagine could be a certain way. Even Street Fighter, right? I kind of smile when they did the PC. Even the SF4, the PC community has done so much with not just like small in mods and stuff, but I mean the way they've tweaked different, like, of course, you always start with skins, right, and everything. That's been a common thing forever, from shooters to everything else. But yeah, anything that comes in, it's going to be heavily tampered with, and that's always fun. So cross your fingers. I want to see more of this. I want to see Xbox get their exclusives. I want to see PS4 get their exclusives. I love to see that across the aisle talk. We got this. But we got this.
You got me thinking about this, and I think for the PS3, almost all the games I have are exclusives. I never really actually noticed that about it until I heard you talking about that. For Xbox, it always kind of annoyed me, especially the original Xbox, because like, why the hell would I buy this game on the Xbox when I can just get it for my computer?
Yeah.
Why would I buy Halo? It's on the PC. Why would I buy Knights of the Old Republic?
Yeah.
It's on the PC. And why should I buy your crappy Xbox? My PC is way more powerful. And obviously they ramped it up and were successful with much of what they were trying to do with the 360, and then they laid a giant turd on the floor for Xbox One, but whatever.
But yeah.
A giant exclusive turd that you can put on your cloud, and you can't share that turd with anyone. And it stalks you.
All yours. All yours.
Yes, people, we know that's not how it actually is now, but the fact that they wanted it that way and tried to push it, it's funny. I don't know. I don't even know if we should go into this.
No.
I think we talked about this. The gall of Microsoft. Here we are at E3. Let me tell you all about all the ways we're gonna fuck you with our new console. It's like, what?
Stock. Well,
anyways, we should get off that because we've
yeah,
got a long show as it is, and we're recording this rather late, and so we've got a couple emails.
we do.
But before we get that, I just want to say one more comment about that article about the
Yeah.
shifts and from and everything, is that they do make a mention about the old president of the company, what's his fuck Jin,
Mr.
yeah, and how he is now in an advisory role with the company, which we were commenting, which is basically your contract says we can't fire you, so we're going to put you in a role that is irrelevant. That's often what that means. It's like, we're going to put you over here, and you go ahead and collect your money until your contract's done.
Most of the time, that's the language you have. But then I think you got to counterbalance that a bit. You look at Microsoft and, Mr. Gates. For example, he's definitely stepped back a bit.
But he put himself there, didn't he?
Precisely, he did. That's the thing behind it. So what we don't have, we had the official release of Microsoft. We don't here. I mean, we see a lot of signs and we say, well, Armored Core series and everything else and the things that happen. It's easy to speculate about that, but I just say is what it is. Let me go from there. But you know what?
I still say he should fall on his sword.
This guy.
As we were talking about that earlier today, I was like, a failure such as this, he really should. He should, fall on his sword. He deserves it. What you did. Look at what you did.
Armored ruin. I'm just playing. But hey, regardless, a lot of this we're going to see. Well, I don't know if a lot of this specifically, but E3 is going to be interesting. I'm going to see if we're going to have entries from, if we're going to hear from Miyazaki's pet project supposedly, or whatever else Katakawa wants to roll out. It's right around the corner. E3's coming up in June. I think like June 10th.
Very soon. Very soon.
So we'll see. It's right around the corner.
Okay, so we got a couple emails. Which one do you want to take? You want to take the one about Verdict Day, or do you want to take the one about 9-ball?
I'll go for the one about Verdict Day.
Okay, you go ahead and do that one. I'll do the 9-ball one after.
Okay, so check it out. We got a couple emails here. The first one is from Schmoner. I'm saying that right?
It is. I love that name. I didn't know that. Schmoner.
Just Schmoner.
That's my name now.
Love it. This message says, "Hi, I have a question about Verdict Day. Is it keeping the same flight system as AC5 had? While I like the fact that you could jump off buildings, I didn't care for the fact that it was required for you to jump off a building if you wanted to get any kind of flight capability. Thanks for your time, Chris." Okay, so you're Chris. Well, hey, it sounds like you have not had a chance to actually, get hands-on with Verdict Day or check things out.
What are you waiting for? You can get it for $5 in the bargain.
Go grab it. Does it keep the same flight system? The answer is yes. And this is very historic with the Armored Core series. When you have an expansion within any number, for example, let's say AC3 and then SL and 9-breaker, or AC4, 4-answer, the expansion is not going to stray very far at all from the core mechanics that are presented in that initial entry. So we're talking same flight system. We're talking same FCS. The controls you remembered from 5 are all there. I think the biggest new additions you're going to see are, obviously different missions, different modes to participate in, bunch of new parts, things like that. You said you didn't really care for the fact that it was required for you to jump off a building for flight to get in high. It's funny. Yeah, this here was an issue a lot of veteran players wrestled with too. A lot of people had just trouble just trying to imagine, well, what's this about if I can't just hold X and just take off into the air? Well, what is this about? I have to jump off a building to actually gain height or find sensible ways of doing so. That is still there, but I'd encourage you to kind of look around about different designs and different ways you can gain height. Check this out, okay? There are tanks that can climb very, very high that have nothing to do with wall jumping or wall kicking, but they know how to. These players know how to position themselves and what buildings to use and what places to go. It's always funny when that surprises people. Like, what are you doing up near the top of executive sector? Things like that. That's doable. That's the thing. So I encourage you to look at it. Also, not making it such a grind of just going to the side of the building and hopping and hopping and hopping. Try and mix things a bit. If you use a very mobile design, try and integrate not just your quick boost, your high boost mechanics with that, but start integrating your gliding a little bit. I think you're going to find maintaining your height isn't as much of an issue every time going to the ground and climbing back up. If you use your glide correctly from different spots, cut your quick turns good, you'll find that you can keep a pretty good level of height and altitude. If you're not using cover, there's another leg type, especially the quads, that are very, very, very floaty. Free quad plug, yes. If you just like keeping your aerial hang time, if you want to just, drop your altitude a lot slower. So there's definitely some things to explore within the gameplay there. Yeah, check that out and go for it. If it's not your cup of tea, man, hey, so be it. There are a lot of fans that didn't like this, even a lot of new people to the series that didn't like this, so...
That was the nicest way I've ever heard that said. There's just a lot of people that didn't like this.
Just straight up, man. That's all I got.
If you don't like this, don't worry, man. You're not alone.
Because a lot of people didn't.
But on the topic of the question, also, I think a lightweight reverse joint is probably the best way that you're gonna catch air in Verdict Day. And while the mechanics of the game are basically the same, there was a patch that came out for Verdict Day which did make energy consumption with boosting and maneuverability I don't want to say improved, but it made it a lot more. A lot more similar to previous gens. People definitely wanted more mobility for less consumption, and they gave that to a lot of people. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, you want to get up in that air, you're gonna have to jump off a couple things. But yeah, quads, like Zell said, I think overall have the best ability to maintain flight, and lightweights, in particular reverse joints, I would say are the most independent to get flight and also maintain it. But quads, I think overall are the best for maintaining flight.
There you go, man. There you go. So, yeah, go pick up Verdict Day if you actually want to check that out. It shouldn't cost you.
You might even just want to go to the ACL forums and ask if somebody doesn't want their copy anymore. Which I was joking, but I bet you if he did, someone would give it to him.
Not sure.
That's so bad. I don't mean to kick the horse.
I know.
It's true. Oh, here we are just ripping to shreds the game that this podcast is based on.
But
we're those guys tonight.
But we do it with love. It's because
I'm that guy. You're kind of that guy. I'm not doing it with love. Yeah. But no, we are. We're all right. Let's move on.
The next one is from Eric. I think you want to read this one?
We'll make the fans and the listeners suffer to be reading a paragraph. Hey, Raven's Voice. My name is. We're gonna keep the name out. And I've only been listening to the show for about 2 months, so very late to the game. But I love every moment of it. My ego is still glowing about that. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
I'm a veteran Armored Core fan. Been one since the original Armored Core on the PS1. So
right
I have. That's right, veteran, old school, very old school. Yeah, I love it. So I have a clue about what I'm talking about, but that's besides the point. Which is kind of funny because he never really does bring up how he's referencing that.
Right.
He knows what he's talking about right. Because he never really uses that. But okay. So since I haven't really heard you guys talk about it yet, you should have a show about Nineball through the ages. He's the all-time villain of AC villains, there's a little bit of a grammar error there. And it would be sweet if you guys talked about him through the years and what you think his legacy will be like in future games. Well, the last part of that question is answered for you, sir. There is no legacy in future games.
So, you're just all over this. No.
His legacy is where it is. We have talked about this. If you've been listening to the show regularly, we've had many discussions. And we agree completely. AC, Nineball, not just the villain of the AC villains. Nineball, despite FromSoftware's best attempt to try to shove one down your throat, he is the icon of this series.
Yes, by far. And while we have not had a Nineball podcast per se, we've had a couple of discussions where we've actually really gone into this. The most immediate one, if you were just foaming at the mouth for 9-ball content from us, I highly recommend that you check out our retrospective podcast on Ninebreaker. This is one we did obviously right before Last Raven. We were talking about the older generation of ACs, and we really went into what 9-ball I think meant for the series, how significant it was just to see that AC pop up for the final mission again, and just all the weight that he carries, I think, throughout all of it. And we also had a discussion. I believe perhaps that was in the same conversation. It segued. We were talking about AC mascots and how, and this was an article too, about how White Glen is quote unquote the Mickey Mouse and making the Mickey Mouse of the AC universe. And we both disagree with that. It's obviously 9-ball, and contrasting that and where it goes. So yeah, man, I think you're right on point here. When I think of AC villains, it's that GNL and that red and black AC with that emblem. There's only one AC that can pull it off with a style like that, and that's 9-ball. So yeah, I think you're definitely right on the money. And it wasn't just the AC, as far as the villain. What I loved about 9-ball was what he represented, and it was a certain order that he was always trying to keep. Whether you played through AC1, you remember destroying H1, checking out MOA, the unnamed pilot. The protagonist that had his family murdered and everything, and you go on this quest for revenge. No matter what scenario you put him in, man. Even when he was freaking nameless and barely had a story behind him on AC2, just the unit, or no, in another age rather, a unit running just rampant somewhere, and then Seraph popping up, huge significance, enormous significance. So, yeah, right on. I think you're right in the ballpark with that one.
I'm sure we've talked about this before. The thing about 9-ball that makes 9-ball so good and good for the series is the fact that he's oppression.
Yeah.
And in a game as customizable as it is, a game where you play a merc, you're a bounty hunter basically, where you don't want to pick sides. Things are shades of gray, and there could be something that could be pointed at as good or as evil. You look at this character, and throughout the world, nothing is hated more than oppression.
Yep.
And that's what made him so good. Is like, okay, you don't have to label him the bad guy, although you can and fairly call him the villain.
Right.
But you don't have to play the role as the good guy to be against him. And
Right.
This is bad guys, good guys, whatever. None of them want to be oppressed. None of them want to be told how to live. None of them want to be told what to do. And again, especially in a game where you're allowed so much freedom, it made the perfect sense to have that kind of villain. And no, they can't do it in every game, but goddamn, they really should have gone back to it in the last few years here. This is why, and also because you have such a customizable game from the player's standpoint.
Yeah.
You are creating the hero, and by that the hero, your character. You are creating how that works. You can't put a label as basically the good guy, the hero. You
Exactly.
can't put that in there, and that's why White Glint didn't work.
Yeah, White Glint was just ultimately so ambiguous. I felt the original Joshua O'Brien and the original Glint unit, I mean, despite how propped up he was during 4 and everything, I didn't feel it. I didn't feel that kind of gravity and weight there, and enough significance to say, your pilot was just so, taken that, he decides to pick up that mantle. He decides to become him. So, like, you become it, essentially. And it just, I felt that, just really, really felt kind of flat.
Enforced.
Enforced, too, and it's really just put in your face, and then the main intersection of 4 answer, the clean middle of the game, partial middle at least, is that intersection where you're battling White Glint or you're aiding White Glint. Either way, White Glint goes down. And that's the real intersection point to the rise of Orca, and how the rest of the events start unfolding. But all of this is very, very, very pushed. And it felt with 9-ball, you didn't have to sell him hard at all. It was just known, man. I mean,
what's so awesome about the Armored Core toys
Mm.
Like, even the little tiny ones, and especially, we were talking the last time about the bigger ones, Matrix One and stuff, is that they're customizable. Even those are interchangeable. You just bought this character, but you can change them with other characters. Like half of those big
Yep.
action figures they came out in multiple colors, so you could interchange those pieces.
Yep.
And there it is even more. That's it's about the customizations. But okay, that's cool. You've got this guy, and maybe I'll play with that guy a little bit or whatever, set him up. But it's about taking this and making it my guy. It's about making my hero, my AC, and that again, it's the same thing. I don't want to fucking ride White Glint. Who gives a shit about this? It's not about his story. I don't care about his story. I care about my story.
Yeah, I mean, here's the biggest, I think, divide here to where the two fall. And regardless of how you feel about either one, or if you're in the camp, if you're saying, well, they're both equal villains somehow. Look, this is it. Nine Ball has had a footprint on the Armored Core series that is echoed throughout the whole series, no matter where you followed. Even if the unit did not appear directly, there's usually a very obscure reference, or there's something that at least refers to him. It's kind of funny. In the recent games, in the PS3 360, this has been a lot more faint. Specifically in 5 and Verdict Day, especially in 5. I kind of smirked. The last final mission, 09, and then the boss doing a very similar flight pattern to Nine Ball Seraph's missile launching. Okay, I see. And later on, we jump just a hair further. Verdict Day. We have White Glint, Black Glint shoved in our faces again, but loose ideas of an oppressive system, of trying to preserve a certain order, or in this case, no order. The whole idea behind the Reaper Squad and whatnot was to, preserve a state of complete chaos and anarchy, and to keep mankind out of sorts and out of hope. But all of that is just so loose and untied, I think, compared to where the Nine Ball legacy sat in the earlier games, right? And it's kind of sad. I think that's become fainter and fainter the further we've gone in the series. It's ironic. I almost want to say the closer we were to that Nine Ball Pulse earlier in the series, it's almost like the hotter AC was, right? And the further we moved away from that, the colder things got. So, yeah, man. I mean, there's a ton of content to talk about there. Like you just outlined. Heck, Nine Ball's a show in and of himself. Definitely something we touched on. We've outlined where you can go to check out that content and stuff too. But long legacy there, man. And he pretty much, that AC tells most of the story of Armored Core Stallone. So
it's a shame, because Nine Ball will probably be one of the better video game villains that will never get the recognition that he deserves.
True.
But part of that's also because he was so great in his simplicity.
Exactly.
So, but at the same time, I mean, he had a big effect, obviously, on the game and how he shows up. And again, my fondest memory of playing Armored Core is when I beat that first Nine Ball, and then, holy shit, there's another one. And that's nuts.
Who can ever forget that? Man, it was it was later on that I went back, and finished the original Armored Core. 'Cause I told you my weird introduction to the series. I got in, and then people were just goofing around in the garage, and I thought that's what all it was about. And then I started backtracking a bit. I picked up, I started playing MOA, AC2 and the others, and I quickly backtracked and, got a chance to play the series as a whole. Like Tierson's saying, man, I mean, the shock factor behind that, nothing beats it. I remember going into that, using enemy AC verified Nine Ball. It's like, oh crap, get serious. It's going to be real. You have the GNL flying in your face and everything else. And you deal with that. You're like, all right, breathe easy. Down, like, oh Lord, there's another one close corridors. Right.
Man, and then that was Master of Arena, wasn't it? Where you see the dozens of Nine Balls.
Oh gosh, that was MOA. You're in that factory at the end.
Oh my god.
You're walking through, and on both sides of you, 9 ball units. And I remember standing there thinking, I'm like, if those jump me, I'm really gonna be in for it. But you come into that larger room, you deal with 2 at once, and then later on, 9 ball Seraph. That was all done very well, very well. And it's funny, even at the end of MOA, I just remember beating that and feeling this isn't over. Like, I know we're going to see this unit again somewhere, and every time he popped up, you hear that theme again. Yep. I think Nine Ball is the only piano theme that I've ever heard that instantly makes, well, yeah, I should probably get serious about this one. So,
Yeah, no, that was.
yeah, classic.
But yeah, I think nine ball within the AC community, for those who played it, I think it's safe to say that Nine Ball will always have a good place as
Yeah.
far as the legacy of the game, and in players' hearts for those who did play through those games and got to play through and understand how the character works. And again, just a good character overall, great in his simplicity, the perfect villain for a game that doesn't tell you
Yep.
what you are and what you're doing. It works really well in that way. But yeah,
Yeah, there's
we're-
Oh, I was saying that there's one other thing. There's one other thing I think that's kind of cool to point out here. Nine Balls, this should show you about his legacy. As far as I know, the only AC character slash villain to appear outside of the AC games. You know, he appeared in Age Another Century, the massive Gundam everything mecha mix up series. And it's funny, while he was a boss in that, and he appeared with the stealth mode. Oh, can you imagine Nine Ball Seraph going into a stealth mode and bashing you with crow extensions or something? Anyway, he appears in that, and you know, one thing I heard from a lot of fans, AC fans and non-AC alike, there were people, AC fans were saying, okay, he was nowhere near as hard in this as he should be in Armored Core, and then the people who weren't Armored Core fans are usually saying, my friends always had nightmares about this, and I get the feeling I didn't have the full experience, so I went and checked this out in Armored Core, and holy crap. So there's always that bound of, I think, like props and kind of like respect there. Even the people that got through that boss battle specifically easy, they was like, oh, no, that was too easy. No, Nine Ball is supposed to make you, you know, curl up in a corner. So always cool stuff. But
all right. I think that's going to do it.
Yeah.
It's that, a lot of bitching on my part. I went through some tissues. I've called the ambulance and they're on their way. Fuck it though. It's just, it's a shame. It is what it is, but it's, at least there is an end.
Yep. You know,
or is there? There's an end for most of us. If they do come out with another one, who's gonna play it?
You're not, clearly.
No, I mean, I'll look into it. I will always look into
course.
it. Even when I stepped away from the community before and I stepped away from Armored Core before, I checked it out. I looked at it from time to time, and there's a reason. There's a reason why I never came back during Gen 4.
Right.
It's if they do announce another Armored Core, I'll take a look. I'll see, but yeah, come on. The only hope, in my opinion, for Armored Core at this point is if somebody buys the title. Somebody else takes up the mantle.
Well, what I do know is this is something you're not going to play into at all, but there is someone in this community who has taken up a very special mantle, and that is Bailey Rose. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm feeling it, man.
That's right. We are to talk about him.
We are. I am totally mentioning this because he posted this amazing feat. Thank you. And I'd requested that upon last show of your feats compared to Berlioz's feats. What makes you stand out? And you did. You got a versus result screen of a full enemy destroy here, and you posted your epic feat. So all right, I'll give that to you. This will be an ongoing, continuing saga. And I think, if anything, you've made your indentation upon that. So, hey, who knows? Maybe you should just go out there and get your own action figure or something. I'm not sure. But,
your own action figure.
Props on the feet. I love seeing that. I love seeing the post. Thanks. That was fun. Man, oh man, oh man. Even the emblem and all. Good stuff.
Just.
That's all. That's my random note.
Whatever.
I don't leave it there, but
I'm just neutral on it. I don't get it. This is obvious, again, something that I'm missing out on. I get the joke that's going on, but I'm not connecting with it.
I feel you. So
whatever. I'm sure we'll see it. We'll see it again for the show. So what? We're done for 2 weeks. Yeah. We're every other week now, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. We've been talking about a slightly different movie formats, both for where were time sets and everything with us. And
don't even get me started on that. I mean, I had
yeah,
just been out of my office for like 20 minutes before I then
right,
did this. This is crazy right now.
right,
Just when I thought it was going to get better.
yeah.
Just when I thought I got out, they pulled me back in.
Sounds like a good plot for the start of something. But yeah, we'll be looking at that. We'll keep you guys updated. We'll be looking at the latest topics. But yeah, until next time, thank you all for tuning in. Everybody, you take it easy. Have a good weekend. Good day, night, evening, whatever it is for you.
Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend.
Please do. Please do.
Drink some beer and have a burger or two for me.
Right on. Take it easy.